It's a great privilege and an honour to be standing here before you as the 112th president of this institute. As you can probably gather from what I've said, that I'm from the north of England, from Middlesbrough, but I hope you won't hold that against me. They haven't got a very good football team for a start. But anyway, my father, he was a shipbuilder. He was at the Smith's Docks in Teesside, and he encouraged me to enter into the marine industry. And looking back on it, I've never regretted it. It's been very interesting and fulfilling. So anyway, I hope I can share with you in a short time what has taken me many years to learn. I think you will all agree, as engineers, you never stop learning. You learn something new every day, and that's the great thing about our profession. And for me, it's been a great journey. So anyway, without more ado, we'll press on. So if the technology works, great. If not, I hope you'll forgive me. So as I say, as Malcolm introduced, the talk is about the design and construction of a modern cruise vessel. So first of all, I'd like to show you what cruising is all about. Now there is a hidden agenda to this clip, and now in Carnival we're really down with the kids, so we've all got YouTube and Facebook and all the rest of it, and this is one of our YouTube presentations.
Royal Princess and Regal Princess are the newest and most innovative ships in the Princess fleet. The onboard experience comes to life in the stunning atrium, now 50% larger than our other ships, offering street performers, live music, and a variety of tempting venues throughout the day. Grab a crispy panini, latte, or loose-leaf tea blends at the International Cafe. Enjoy a cool and creamy treat at Gelatos. Sample our extended wine selection for a pre-dinner drink at Vines. Or bring the whole family to our popular sit-down restaurant, Alfredo's Pizzeria, serving up Princess Cruises' signature hand-tossed Neapolitan-style pizza, fresh out of the oven. If you want a spectacular view of the atrium, unwind while tasting a delicious Bellini cocktail at Bellini's Bar. Sample fresh treasures from the sea at the Ocean Terrace Seafood Bar, or head to Crooner's Martini Bar for live entertainment. And speaking of unwinding, there's no place like the Lotus Spa, now conveniently located on Deck 5 near the atrium. Rejuvenate within 18 treatment rooms, 2 new couples villas, and the new Enclave, boasting a hammam, a caldarium, heated beds, sensory showers, and a hydrotherapy pool to soothe your mind, body, and soul. On Royal and Regal Princess, you'll find elegant, traditional, and anytime dining rooms with new private dining experiences. Our private wine cellar features the opportunity to enjoy a special winemaker's dinner, pairing fine wines specifically chosen to complement select dishes. Or revel in our exclusive Chef's Table Lumiere, enclosed in a curtain of light. And don't miss an opportunity to enjoy our specialty restaurants, Sabatini's, a renowned Italian restaurant, and the Crown Grill, now conveniently located next to our popular Wheelhouse Bar, our premium seafood and chop house. On the top deck, take a stroll through the Seawalk, a cruise industry first. The Seawalk is a glass-bottomed enclosed walkway cantilevered from the ship, which offers unique and amazing views of the ocean below. Then, drop by the Seaview Bar, also on the top deck, to enjoy drinks prepared by bartenders during our new flare shows. If you're looking to escape from it all, the top deck also boasts the Sanctuary and the adjacent Retreat Pool, both reserved exclusively for adults. In the evening, the fountain pool dazzles with a water and light show each night. And just above, our largest ever Movies Under the Stars screen broadcasts first-run movies, concerts, and sporting events for a cozy experience under the night sky. And the Princess Theatre is sure to impress with exciting original production shows and some of the most talented performers at sea, complete with choreographed theatrical lighting, so you feel like you're part of the show. Or be a part of a live studio audience in our exciting new Princess Live TV studio, presenting live game shows, performances, and more. If you're feeling energetic, our new contemporary nightclub, Club 6, offers a great spot for dancing and hanging out with friends. Take your chances in the Princess Casino, also on Deck 6, offering a seemingly endless array of modern slot machines, as well as all your favorite table games, from poker to blackjack and roulette. Or head upstairs to the Vista Lounge on Deck 7 for a variety of entertainment, including comedians, singers, and musicians. When it's time to retire, you'll feel right at home with our range of comfortable staterooms. Interior staterooms are well-appointed, comfortable, and offer an affordable option. Enjoy the fresh sea air and incomparable ocean views with a balcony stateroom. Or upgrade to one of our new deluxe balcony staterooms, offering more room for you to spread out and relax. A generous mini-suite includes a separate sitting room, full bath, and ample balcony. Or you can treat yourself to an ultra-spacious suite and all the amenities that come with it for an unsurpassed experience. There's also a selection of rooms for our guests with disabilities designed to provide maximum accessibility and comfort. For an unforgettable experience of a relaxed, rejuvenating retreat at sea, Royal Princess and Regal Princess are sure to help you escape completely.
Right, there we go. So why did I put that video up? Because there isn't a lot of talk about marine engineering, science and technology. As one of my bosses said to me, we take all that for granted. But so I hope to show you how important it is that all that take it for granted stuff is done properly. So where do I work? So I work for Carnival Corporation and PLC. It was founded in 1972 by the father of our current chairman, who's pictured there, Mickey Harrison. It's a public company, dual listed in New York and London. We are the largest cruise company in the world. We've got 100 ships with 8 more to be delivered by 2016. 2013 wasn't a particularly great year for us. The turnover was about the same as the previous year, but the net income was down a little from $1.13 billion to $1.08 billion. We've got about 91,000 employees, 77,000 of them are at sea, and at any one time we have about 200,000 guests at sea. If you want to find out more about Carnival, it's there on the website address. Is easy to find. So Carnival has 10 brands. Some of them you'll know about and some you probably won't. The ones in the UK are P&O Cruises and Cunard, and I work in the Carnival UK office, although corporate shipbuilding is a corporate function and the head office is in Miami. Most of the shipbuilding is in Europe, so it makes no sense to have corporate shipbuilding in Miami just from a travel perspective. So we're embedded in the Carnival UK office in Southampton. And those are the 10 brands of Carnival. Globally, the cruise industry is quite big. It has about $100 billion economic impact. It creates about $33 billion in global wages and nearly 1 million jobs around the world. And that source is from CLIA, which is the industry association body. So a bit of history about cruising. P&O, which doesn't really exist anymore now, will claim it invented cruising, and William Thackeray was said to be one of the early passengers. And yes, he did complain about the shore excursions. So really, nothing has changed in 100 and odd years. But however, the origins of cruising really begin with the ocean liners and the jet airliner. And for those who you can remember it, the Comet entered service in 1952, which was a real kind of landmark in aviation. But at that time, we had lots of big ocean liners, like the France is pictured there. So what did they do with all these old ocean liners, which now became redundant with the age of the jet aircraft? So somebody had the bright idea that they would turn these into cruise ships. And in fact, the Mardi Gras, which is pictured there on the right, this was Carnival's first cruise ship. It's the ex-Empress of Canada. And the story is that the first cruise to the Bahamas, it ran aground on a sandbank. So they said, oh, well, that's all right. Free bar, free booze for everybody. So the passengers got so drunk, it was only a 2 or 3 day cruise. By the time they got back to Miami, they never noticed, and they all thought it was absolutely fantastic. So that, you know, as we said, that was cruising started in 1970. Carnival was founded in 72, using this ex-liner, the Empress of Canada. And P&O cruises started very much in a similar way with the Canberra that was built to take emigrants out to Australia. And of course, when the jet airliner took over, it had no more use as a liner ship, so it was converted into a cruise ship and ran for many years very successfully. Well, fairly successfully. But these ships, like the Canberra, weren't really optimized for cruising. You know, that at slow speeds, they drank fuel like anything, and they weren't really laid out for proper as cruise ships. So the first purpose-built cruise ships started to appear. And some early examples, how many of you remember the Love Boat television program? So Princess Cruises, which is now part of Carnival, it had the original Love Boat delivered in 1971. And the Song of America, which was built for one of our competitors, Royal Caribbean, in the bottom left, that was a real landmark ship. You know, it was a real step change in size and layout. But anyway, you've probably had enough of the history. Oh, and by the way, Captain Stubbings is still around as a spokesperson for Princess Cruises. So we see him from time to time on the ships. So where do we start? Well, what we do is, first of all, we ask the customer, in this case the brand, be it P&O Cruises, Cunard, what they want. What type of ship do you want? How many passengers do you want to carry? How many crew? You know, what's the ratio of crew to passengers? What type of density do you want? Do you want big or small cabins? How many public rooms do you want? Do you want to do long cruises or short cruises? What kind of speed do you want to go at? Do you have any size limitations in the ports that you're going to go to? Are there any special features you want? You know, do you want climbing walls and water slides and all this kind of thing? So we're actually trying to find out what the brand wants, because they're in corporate shipbuilding, they're effectively our customer, they're our client. We are building the ship for them. So then we develop a design in conjunction with the shipbuilders, because we're not a design house in itself. We kind of more oversee the project, and we use our architects and designers. And these are not naval architects, these are architects and interior designers. So they're developing concepts for, you saw the big atrium on the Royal Princess, and these public rooms, the theatre, etc. These architects, they might be working in land-based industry, in hotels and restaurant design. And we've been involved in ships of all different sizes. The last small ship we built was the Seabourn Odyssey for Seabourn Cruises. That's only got 450, I say only, 450 passengers, less than 200 meters long. The new Royal Princess, which you saw that was launched last year by the Duchess of Cambridge in Southampton, 330 meters long, much bigger ship, 4,300 passengers, about 1,300 crew. So over 5,500 people on board that ship. So we cover a wide spectrum of ship sizes in corporate shipbuilding. What's important when you're developing these ship designs is to benchmark it, because you have to pass the sanity check about, is this ship a reasonable proposition? And so ship size is measured by gross registered tonnage, which is actually the volume of the ship. So it's a measure of the volume of the ship, and it's roughly a measure of the ship's cost. And the potential revenue is measured in terms of lower beds, or we would call available lower beds. So this is, every cabin normally has 2 beds, so the available lower beds are the number of cabins times 2, and we exclude all the extra Pullman and sofa beds that we put in the cabins. So the GRT per lower bed is an important parameter, because it roughly gives you the cost, how much you're going to pay for every available lower bed in the ship. So we've got some parameters here of some of the ships. You probably can't read them all, but at one end of the scale we have the Disney ships, which are big ships but maybe don't have so many lower beds. And you have a ship like Majesty of the Seas, which is very dense. So they would have a very low measure of GRT per lower bed. So you're trying to find out where your ship is in that kind of range. And if you're going for an ultra luxury ship, you want to compare yourself with similar ships in the market. The same for things like public area per lower bed, open deck area per lower bed in the sun and the shade. So these are important things. These are the sanity checks that you have to do. Make sure you're not too far out in your design. Otherwise you could end up with a bit of a lemon. Cabin size, again, big variety. Cabin size, Disney, which has, family orientated, has big cabins. Again, Majesty of the Seas has small ones. Ships like Oriana, kind of in the middle. Princess, in the middle. All comparable with ships of a similar kind of market that they're aiming for. So some of the important parameters you're looking at. Panama Canal, this is the old Panama Canal. The new locks are not yet open. I think there's some kind of dispute, isn't there, about the concrete or something I read in the press. But so the Panama Canal at the moment, if you want your ship to go through the Panama Canal, you're limited to the length overall of 295 meters. You need a certain length to get the lifeboats in, although we've got round that problem now. We just said, okay, well, we'll have bigger lifeboats. And then you don't need so many, so you can squeeze them into the length of the ship. So that was quite a pragmatic solution. But length is the most expensive dimension, and you've got to think about things like available berths. Is the ship going to fit the berths? Can you turn it in the harbors and the channels that the ship is going to go into? In Miami, they have a maximum length of about 330, 350 meters. So the ships are not going to get much bigger in terms of length if they're going to turn around in Miami. The beam, if you're going to put the ship through the Panama Canal as it is at the moment, you've got to get it within 32.25 meters. And the ships absolutely fit in the Panama. I mean, there's centimeters to spare on either side. They're absolutely optimized. The ships that are designed to go through the Panama Canal, they're absolutely optimized for it, including the clearance for the railway locomotives and the lamps and all the rest of it. The draft is important because it determines where you can go. The old liners, like the Canberra, had drafts 10 meters plus, so that limited which ports you can go to. Most modern cruise ships, I don't know whether you remember the slide of the Royal Princess, but she has a design draft of 8.3 meters, which is typical for Caribbean ports. Usually they're designed for ships around 8.5 meters to enter. So you don't want to go over that draft. That's a draft limitation. But you also need to think about draft for deadweight reasons, for seakeeping, for hydrodynamics, and you need a draft margin for future growth. Passenger ships only ever get heavier. They never get lighter. More coats of paint, more whiz-bangs, more marble, more stone. They only get heavier. So you have to put a reasonable draft margin in for future growth. And don't forget the air draft. You know, this is governed by bridges and cables. The bridge in San Francisco is one example. The Queen Mary 2 only just gets under. I think there's a video somewhere of a deck officer with a 2-meter wooden stick on the top of the funnel, and he can touch the underneath of the bridge as the ship goes under. We've got cables in Alaska across some of the routes, and it's roughly about 58 meters is in our air draft limit from the water to the top of the funnel. And this is a real problem now, because as the ships get bigger, they have more decks, so you have less height for an efficient funnel. And this really is another issue that's beginning to bite us now as well. Deadweight. You don't have to memorize this. But it's just really, passenger ships are not deadweight carriers. They're not like bulk ships or tankers. Deadweight doesn't vary very much as the ship goes along. You know, it's fairly static, because as we use fuel up, we'll be storing grey water and or making more fresh water. So the deadweight remains fairly constant. I only put the picture in at the bottom right because we do make an allowance for passengers with luggage and crews and effects. And you would be amazed what the crew bring on board. Talk about everything in the kitchen sink. They do bring the kitchen sink sometimes. So, you know, sometimes I really wonder if our allowance for crew and passenger effects is enough. But anyway, we have some standard figures which we use. But typically the deadweight capacity of our ships is about 8,000 for the medium-sized ships, maybe up to 10,500 for the bigger ships. The speed and the power, so this is an important consideration. So these are really determined by the itineraries and the areas of operation and the weather, and that's one of our Carnival Cruise Line ships going through a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. It didn't do the bow of the ship much good, to be honest, but anyway, it did get through all right. So we need to determine the speed and power depending on the operating profile. So we need to look at what the projected cruise itineraries are. Usually we get them and then immediately the ship goes into service, they change. So most of the assumptions were probably not so great in the first place. Sea margin is usually quite high for these ships because they do have a lot of involuntary loss of speed because they're fairly bluff. They have a fair amount of wind resistance. So you need to get these estimates at a fairly early stage in the project so you can start to map out what engines you need and what power you need from the propulsion. And the speed and power, obviously that influences the whole form and the machinery. And I think it's very difficult to actually develop a slide to describe diesel-electric propulsion, but all the cruise ships that we have built since the Oriana have all been diesel-electric propulsion, all of them. So we don't build any other type except with diesel-electric propulsion, and these work on the principle, I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but we have 4, 5 or 6 diesel engines all connected to a common network, and connected to this network are the electric propulsion motors through converters and the electric propulsion motors to the propeller. So the engines don't drive the propellers directly, the electric motors drive the propellers. And here on the left you can see a typical propulsion motor. And so, because we're working on this power station concept, the engines provide all the required power for propulsion, engine room services, hotel services, bow and stern thrusters, air conditioning. And they might be diesel engines or gas turbines. We have ships with gas turbines like the Queen Mary 2. And although they've gone a little bit out of fashion at the moment because of their high fuel consumption. So the diesel engine is really the preferred choice from economy, and you can see the kind of size of engine that we have, judged by the scale of this man here. Propulsion type, we're building ships with both conventional shaft lines and with podded propulsion. We don't have a particular view in Carnival shipbuilding. Again, it's up to the brand to decide what they want. Royal Princess has water lubricated conventional shafts. The new ships that we're building for Holland America and Carnival Cruise Line will have pods. The new small ship for Seabourn will be conventional shaft lines again. Our preference now is, if we're going for conventional shaft lines, always to go for water lubrication to avoid the pollution issues. Hull form, I won't go through this in detail, but there is a lot of pre-development of the hull form, mainly driven by the shipyard, who will do a lot of tank testing in advance of the contract being signed, because they want to know that the contractual speed-power relationship that we have with them is realistic and they can achieve it. And there's a lot of things to take into account, such as stability, internal volume. You often have conflicting requirements for seakeeping, manoeuvring requirements. So you have to balance all these issues with the weight quality for the propellers, etc., etc. Stability, quite important in a cruise vessel. You don't want to end up upside down or sideways. So we have to look at both the intact stability and the damaged stability. The catering spaces and flows, this is an important part of the ship design to make it as efficient as possible. Most ships have all the food stores and hotel stores at the aft end of the ship. So we have a working alleyway on the bulkhead deck. That is the first continuous deck above all the watertight bulkheads. If it's a British ship, they call it the M25, and if it's an American ship, they call it the I-67 or something. And this is where all the crew can move horizontally throughout the ship without going into the passenger areas. So they can access through vertical service elevators and service stairs the particular areas where their work is. And on this deck, on this working alleyway, we'll have the crew purser's office and lots of back of house type functions. Passenger flows are really important. So we try to make a natural flow of what the passengers would want to do. So probably in the evening, they want to go from the bar to the restaurant, then they want to go to the theatre. After the theatre, you want them to go to the bar and the casino and the nightclub to spend money. And if they're in the gym, you want them to go to the spa and the pool and the cafe. So you try and put all these routes together in your layout of the ship, because it not only enhances the revenue, but it creates a popular, good feeling ship. You know, you don't want passengers wandering around saying, oh, I can't find the theatre or I can't find the bar. So this is really important. This is where a lot of our designers come up with some good innovative ideas. And so we have lots of ways to take money off you, in the bars. This very nice lady from Holland America Line is very happy taking money off you in the casino, in the spas and in the nightclubs. A little bit about the structure. We spend a lot of time optimizing the structure. This is a picture of the theatre on the Queen Victoria. There are no pillars in this theatre. So anywhere you sit in the theatre, you have an unobstructed view of the stage. And we do this by putting very stiff, strong, longitudinal bulkheads above the theatre, effectively having a girder over the theatre. Of course, people, unless you tell them, people don't notice this. As my boss would say, they take all that for granted. But it's actually quite challenging. Cabin decks, we have most of our different cabin types. Here you can see a few suites, deluxe balcony cabins. They're all prefabricated, delivered on a forklift truck, lifted up, they cut a hole in the side of the ship and they slot them all in. Now the ships tend to have a narrow, long superstructure, so you have lots of balcony cabins. And it's no coincidence that the space framing is 725 millimeters about, with a web frame every 4 frames, because this makes the width of a standard cabin exactly the same as the length of a bed plus the space to walk through at the end between the bulkhead. So your frame spacing is actually determined by your cabin layout effectively and fitting your window in, and then it's up to the very clever structural engineers to design the structure around that kind of parameter. And you've got to leave space for the engine casing, the AC stations, the stairs, etc. External styling open decks, well, this is really part of the brand identity. There's lots of companies out there who, especially from the yacht industry, who will design you an external profile that they think looks very nice. But we've also got to make it practical, so the wind environment and the screening is very important. The aerodynamics for the exhaust, we talked about the challenges now as the funnels get shorter and shorter. And we have to incorporate all these innovative features if people want climbing walls, golf courses, fountains that spray coloured water and all this kind of thing. A bit more of the engineering. All the system designs, obviously we've got to meet operational needs. We meet, but we often exceed the regulatory requirements. Generally, we go for resilience through redundancy and system layout. The new safe return to port regulations for passenger vessels have determined quite a lot the layout and resilience arrangements for the newer ships. And we have all the treatment systems for solid waste, liquid waste and air emissions. And here's our chap filling in the garbage book, I think. It's a floating city. I mean, if we've got 4,000 passengers and crew, normally we work on about 300 litres per person per day. So this is 1,200,000 litres a day, or 1,200 tonnes of fresh water. And the power to keep this working typically is around 12 megawatts. So that's enough for 27,000 homes about. And everybody wants to know where the poo goes to. That's often the question. So, you know, we generate about 1.5 kilos of solid waste per person per day. So that's not just what the passenger creates, but it's packaging that comes on board from the stores. 0.5 kilo of food waste per person per day, although obviously we try to minimize that because any wasted food is wasted. And we work on about 25 litres of sewage per person per day, or about 100 tonnes of sewage per day. And the rest of the water just ends up as wastewater to be treated, as we call it, grey water on the ship. We have a medical centre, and yes, we do have a morgue, usually a triple-decker, but anyway, we do have a morgue. We follow the guidelines for cruise ship medical facilities dictated by the American College of Emergency Physicians. Typically, we have 2 doctors, 1 senior nurse, and up to 4 nurses, depending on the ship size. We have a laundry. There's a lot of towels, tablecloths, and sheets. I can tell you the laundry is amazing, and lots of big provision stores for all the food and drink that's consumed during the voyage. I think for those who've been on a ship visit with me, we're fairly impressed with the laundry, I think. Yes. The regulatory environment, most of you know about this. At the last President's Day talk, Andreas talked about IMO, the classification societies, which we have a representative here tonight, and the flag state represented by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency in Southampton and IMO in London. And Lloyd's soon to be in Southampton. So the output from all this talking, I won't go through it, but we end up with a detailed technical description of the vessel. And we haven't even signed the contract yet. So there's a lot of work gone into producing a huge volume of documentation that defines the ship we're going to get. And so for a prototype ship, we may be 1 year in pre-contract discussions. And then for a prototype ship, this is the kind of timescale we're looking for. So from signing the contract, it'll probably be about 2 years and 9 months before delivery. Not sure how much that compares to an aircraft carrier, but perhaps we could discuss that later. For a prototype, for a repeat ship, the shipyards can now reduce that to 2 years and 6 months, something like that. Where do we build the cruise ships? Well, we don't build them in the UK, we don't build them in America. There's cruise ship building going on at the moment in Finland, Germany, France, Italy, and Japan. The ships are built in blocks, as you're probably aware. When they lay the keel, the ships are built in, they don't go down a slipway, they're built in a dry dock, a building dock. So the keel laying's not particularly exciting, they just land a big block in the bottom of the dry dock. The lower blocks early on include stabilizers, so this gives you some idea of the size of a stabilizer for one of our cruise ships. The machinery then goes in these early blocks. So there's an engine generator set already pre-assembled going into the ship. The machinery is, they try and pre-outfit as many of the blocks as they can while the blocks are in the block construction stage. So they'll put piping in. All this machinery will have been pre-outfitted on the block before it was lifted into the building dock. And you can see there's kind of various odds, bits and ends that they've pre-fitted into the blocks because it's easier to do that at that stage. So they just go on adding more and more blocks till it looks like that. So that's a Princess ship, and that's just about ready to float out of the dock. So they flood up the dock and they tow it out of the dock with the tugs and take it round to the outfitting berth. And the outfitting, it's a bit like outfitting a hotel or a restaurant. So all these guys come on board and clad the steel pillars and put the ceiling up and put all the lighting arrangements in and put all these decorative features around the ship. So the outfitting continues. This is an atrium which they've nearly finished. As you can see, they put all kinds of protective stuff over the banisters while it's being built so that what they've built doesn't get damaged. The cabins start off in a prefabricated state like this, and people come in and eventually they finish up like that. They outfit the galley. There's another picture of the galley. It's a homage to stainless steel. Everything is stainless steel. We comply with the United States public health requirements, which are the most severe in the world, as administered by the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. Everything is stainless steel. And the galley staff take great pride in keeping it clean. So they usually hose it all down and all the water goes in the electrical panels and then they don't work. And the engineers get very cross, I can tell you that, and tell them to stop doing it, but they still do it. So then we go into dry dock because they have to paint the ship before the speed trials. Here's, it's a nice sunny day, but don't worry, if it's raining, they'll still paint it because they have to stick to the schedule. Then we go out on sea trials. We do lots of exciting things like the anchor trials. And yes, one day they did all stand there and they watched the anchor go da-da-da-da-da-da, and they watched the bitter end go out and go down the hole. And they all went, oh dear, that wasn't meant to happen. But it does, it does. But it's all it makes a lot of noise and clanking. It's all very exciting. And everybody's in the control room watching all the dials and things. That's all very exciting as well. And then we're finished and ready to go. So there's the ship in Italy at Fincantieri, and they've handed over the ship and they say, there you are, it's your ship. And then we come to the best part. This is it when we have the naming ceremony where we have lots of fireworks and glasses of champagne, and that's definitely the best part of the whole experience. So thank you for listening. I think I've probably overrun a little on time, but if anybody has any questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Thank you very much.